You don't need me to tell you that the world is a pretty messy place these days. So maybe you're like me, you're a parent, or maybe you're a grandparent, or you hope to be a parent, and you're wondering, how am I supposed to raise a godly family in this environment? Well, the video you're about to watch tackles that head on. It's a conversation between Andy Dieselkamp and Scott Smelser discussing the very question I just mentioned. How can I raise a godly family today? As a dad of 2 young kids, I found it hugely helpful, and I hope the same is true for you. Oh, also, real quick, click the like and subscribe buttons below this video. That helps us a lot. Thanks for doing it. All right, enough of me. Here's the interview. Scott, good to have you with us today.
Good to see you, Andy.
We're going to talk about raising godly families. I know family is important to you. It's important to me. It's important to most people.
Yes.
So let's talk about how important it is, personally for you, how important was your family growing up?
Oh, that was huge. I was blessed, like you were with good, godly parents, and that meant a great deal. And some of the time I was growing up in part of the country that was difficult, in a part of town that was difficult, and home was a good, secure place, and my parents were just good examples and taught us to serve the Lord and follow the Word, not just follow them, but follow the Word.
Yeah. How did your home life help you, being in your home you were raised in, how did that help you with the formation of your own family, looking for a wife and raising your children?
I would say this, not as much as it should have.
Okay.
Because
what do you mean by that?
I think that both of my parents were more mature than I am yet. So I had professors I should have paid better attention to. If I had paid better attention to my parents, I would be better than I am. But I'm thankful to them because I did pay some attention.
So you're not faulting your parents.
No,
you're faulting yourself.
The fault clearly falls.
Well,
right
obviously,
here.
I think we all could find ourselves in that circumstance as children. We're immature and we don't realize the advantages that we've got with our parents. Well, share with us a little bit about your own marriage, your own family.
So Bertina and I were blessed with 3 boys and 3 girls, and all 4 years apart. So from Ronald Reagan until Barack Obama was the first time we were not having a baby on the way. I think George W. Bush was the last one.
It's a long time span.
Every presidential election, Bertina was having a baby that year. Okay. And I'll tell you one thing that I incorporated that was really, really valuable. And I didn't do it at the beginning, but at some point we started doing something called the improvement game.
Okay.
And I based it a little bit on Revelation 2 and 3.
Ah.
So Jesus addressed some churches, and usually he points out,
yeah,
here's what you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where you need to improve.
Right.
And so we would sit down at the table, and we'd play the improvement game. And we would start with the littlest one. He might have been 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And everybody would say one thing he's been doing better at.
Oh.
Just one thing. And then older sibling, then got to mom, and then to me. And then, what's one thing Lucas needs to work on? And then each sibling got to point out one thing, then mom, then me.
Okay.
And when we got done with the kids, and it was mom's turn and my turn. And I would ask my children, what's one thing that dad has been doing better at? And they would give one thing.
Uh-huh.
And then when they were all done, what does dad need to do better at? And then I'd listen to a 2-year-old, my 6-year-old, my 10-year-old, my 14-year-old, my wife, and me. And one of the rules of the game is you don't argue.
You just
you
listen.
know you're going to hear where you can improve. And like if I heard 3 or 4 of my kids saying I've been too grouchy, guess what?
Probably true.
Yeah. And if a time or two later, if we play the improvement game, and that time nobody's saying I've been grouchy.
Maybe you've improved.
Yeah. And here's what I think that helped. Some people might think that that would interfere with parental authority. I think it helped show my kids that God is more important than any of us.
Oh,
That all of us fail from time to time.
right.
And that what you do is you apologize and do better. And I think that was one of the more, I know it was helpful to me, and I think it was very helpful.
And was that something, that game you played, was that something you just did one time, or was
No,
this
no,
a
this was-
routine
you
thing?
repeat- yeah,
Once
yeah.
a month? Or?
And sometimes the kids would ask for it. Things would get kind of tense in the house, and they'd say, "Hey, can we play an improvement game?" And and just the other day, my youngest, who's now 20, he and I were on a trip or something. He suggested we play the improvement game, and so we played it with each other.
That's fascinating. So you would have 6 children, and you and your wife. How long did that game take?
Oh, it took a while.
I would think.
It took a while, but everybody listened to the other and we're all living with each other.
Right.
We can all see, when Dad messes up, it's not like, I think one of the worst mistakes we can make, well, maybe not one of the worst, but a bad mistake we can make is as parents never admit when we're wrong.
Right.
And there's some dads
Yeah.
who don't want to admit, when I'm right, and when I'm wrong, I'm right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't fool our wives.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fool our kids.
Yeah.
And so I think learning to apologize and helping children learn to apologize is a great benefit for them to learn, because everybody, all we like sheep have gone astray.
Yeah.
And there's 2 types of people in the world, the people that admit it and correct it and the people that don't.
Yeah.
And so I found that to be helpful, I know, to me, and I think it was real helpful to them.
Well, and I would imagine that game, that opportunity to give that feedback to one another would only draw you closer.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
that's fascinating. That's really great. So tell us a little bit more about Bertina. What attracted you to her?
Yeah, so different things, but one of the main things that really got my attention was one night, a few of us had gone out. She had just gotten to college. I think she was 17. I was upper D at the time. My car broke down. My roommate went to get his car. I'm standing around talking with these girls, and I told what I thought was a funny story, because I pulled lots of stupid stuff, dumb stuff that was for a laugh, but didn't think about how it affected other people always.
Mm-hmm.
And I related something that at the time people had found really funny, and she didn't. And she looked at me and she smiled, but she said something that got my attention to realize that wasn't the right thing to do. And it was unkind. But she smiled when she said it. And right there, I realized this girl has more class than I do. And I need to be more like that. But I still love her smile. When she smiles, it just kind of melts me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just a smile, she was right. And I appreciated her saying it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the relationship developed from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, not immediately. There were,
yeah.
and some things off and on, but eventually, a couple years later, we got married.
Yeah. Very good. So tell us a little bit more about your children. You've already told us about the game that you play, but.
So the oldest is 40, the youngest is 20. So for a long time, I would go do series on parenting, and I almost always had a child your child's age, or within close to it for a while, or at least for part of the time. Now they're all out. Luke just left for his last year of college, and next year we'll probably be somewhere else. So now we're empty nesters.
Yeah.
But the girls are all married. 2 of them married coworkers of mine who had come to train for a year, and then the congregation enjoyed them, and then they stayed longer, and they ended up marrying my daughters. And one of them married a young man whose father and mother helped us when we were planting a work. A lot of my life I've done involved in planting works. And when we were planting work up in Rhode Island, and my little girl was 1.5 and their little boy was 4 or 5, and now they're married. And we have 10 grandchildren as of the last couple of weeks. Just one, April and Tim just adopted a little boy in Arizona and just got back to Pennsylvania last night. And we're very, very excited about that.
That is exciting. So you said you did some parenting classes, that you'd focus on those kinds of things. What did you personally find both rewarding about parenthood, about being a father, and challenging about being a father?
Challenging. One of the things I've found frustrating about parenting is when you see a behavior or a bad idea or an attitude in your child and you know exactly where they got it from.
Like yourself.
It's like, you see them do this is good, and that was bad. But then every once in a while you see them repeating a shortcoming of yours.
Yes.
And that's frustrating. You're disappointed that it's in your child, but you're also realizing they didn't come up with that one on their own.
Yeah, they learned it.
So that's a challenge. We need to keep growing. Rewarding, man. I'm just, you remember the first time y'all had a baby, and just, there's no way you can be prepared for how wonderful that's going to be.
Right.
And then as you watch them grow, and then, so my stage now, is you watch them go past you. That's beautiful. I need to do some catching up sometimes.
Yes.
But it's just great. I tell you, one goal that I've had for a long, long, long time is I want to have what my dad has. So y'all probably have something very similar to this. Every other Thanksgiving, all of Dad's children, grandchildren, everything, great-grandchildren get together at his house for Thanksgiving. And all the people of age are Christians. All the marriages are intact. Nobody's coming in with new pronouns or, purple mohawks or, it's just, and I want that. And so I don't just want good children, I want good grandchildren.
Absolutely.
And I've illustrated it this way. If I take a legal pad and I write on there, love God and love your neighbor. Not hard, but just enough to make it. You can read it on the first page, but not the second. But if I really bear down and I write love God and I deeply imprint it, after the first page is gone, you can still absolutely read it. And after the next one, you can still read it. After the next one, you can still read it. Now, of course, the time comes where that original impression is gone. And the day will be here when neither you or I will be remembered.
Right.
Like I ask people sometimes, what's the name of your mother's father's mother? Usually people don't know.
No.
We'll be forgetting pretty quickly. But if our children pick up the pen and firmly write those same things,
Right.
it can have an effect for generations and generations, as in your family.
Sure. And so what would people, maybe some pushback on that a little bit? Is that just kind of following a family tradition then? In other words, is that what faith is? Is just a handing down? And that's what tradition is, a handing down? Is that all it is?
If that's all it is, then it will not go well, because it's like the church. I tell parents repeatedly, over and over and over, never teach your children to follow the church. Teach them to follow the Lord.
Amen.
If you teach the people at Laodicea to follow the church, then they're going to be lukewarm people to be spewed out.
Right.
And so Robert Turner used to say, God doesn't have any grandchildren. And so the point is not do what we did. The point is we all need to be serving God. And if each generation makes that commitment, you have the benefit of having had godly parents, but you went way past that long ago. It's not about doing what mom and dad said. It's about serving God.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, and it's getting the focus in the right place.
Yes.
And so that want to go back to something you and I had a conversation or you mentioned in passing one time about Bertina, something about marrying somebody who loves God more than you. I want you to elaborate on that a little bit.
I mean, that first time that I kind of particularly noticed her, I'm a young man, she's a young girl. She could have thought, oh, I'm going to laugh along at that.
Yes.
You know, I'm not going to, point out that was unkind. Right. But it was unkind. And I needed to hear that. And so I repeatedly tell young men, I said, marry somebody that loves God more than you. One, if I marry a girl that thinks I'm more important than God, I married a really stupid girl. She's not a very good judge of character. Secondly, I can be pretty annoying.
Okay.
Bertina doesn't spend every day just, I can't wait until Scott walks in the door because he's perfect. But because my wife loves God more than me, when I owe her an apology, she accepts my apology.
Yes.
When somebody loves God more than us, it's not only right and obvious, but it makes us better wives and husbands. Because in every marriage, in every family, in sibling relationships and parents, there's going to be times where you're not real happy.
Yeah.
And things are difficult. And that's when you do what's right. And you fix things. Let me share an example. Do you remember, I think it may be changed in recent years, in a few administrations back, but from 1960 till at least around 2008 maybe, in Cuba, you couldn't get new cars or new car parts. So if you see pictures of Cuba from that time period, you'll see some really nice conditions, some not as well, but some really, really nice cars from the 50s, Edsels, Dodges, Pontiacs, and stuff. And I point out to people, and lots of times when I'm talking to fathers or men, I'll say, well, I'll ask you, what was your first car?
A 1969 Chevy Impala.
All right. Were you happy to get it when you got it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You liked it. You were excited.
Paid $300, $400 for it.
There you go. What color was it?
Green.
Yeah. You were excited. Where is it?
I have no idea. A junkyard probably somewhere.
Yeah. Because at some point, it gave you some trouble, or it broke down, or you got a shinier model was available. Mm-hmm. And that's the way a lot of women get treated. That's in, there in the Old Testament, at the altar, the tears of the wife of your covenant who you betrayed. And those cars in Cuba, I'll point out, I'll put them up on screen, and I'll say, do you think this car never broke down? Never overheated? Of course it did, but what did the guy do? He fixed it.
Yeah.
And that's how we ought to do with marriage.
Yeah.
I don't know of a marriage. I know of one marriage where very elderly couple, wonderful couple, and they never remembered having a single argument. That's pretty good. But there's going to be some difficulties in every marriage. But the thing is, anything worthwhile, you work at it. Don't stop working on it. You keep working on it. And when you marry somebody that loves God more than you, that's somebody that's going to keep working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a situation. In fact, you're not going to be able to love your husband or your wife the best way that they need to be if you don't put God first, if you don't love Him more. So that was an interesting comment that you had made, and I wanted to follow up on that. So you've lost a child. Tell us about that. Tell us about Adam.
Adam So Adam was my oldest son, and he was born in 1988, and I'm thankful to have gotten to be his dad and that we had him here for the quarter century that we had him. I love him and I respect him. And it was a drowning accident. He stayed very physically fit. He did just a lot of things that were good. But one thing, he tried to stay physically fit. And after church one Sunday, he went down. He went on his run, and he went to do his swim in an area of the river where there were some rapids, and then there was a pool over here. But they'd had flooding in the area, and he did not realize what was going on under the surface and how all the hydraulics had changed. It's under a bridge where there were homeless guys and I found out that he would bring the homeless guys food. You know, he'd buy them coffee. Like one of the guys that used to live under the bridge, when I'm there and they're looking for the body, it's this old man. He said,
So this was his routine.
Yeah. He said, your son was a friend of mine. You know, he would take me to buy coffee. And this day the river was really flooded, and he just got stuck in that current and couldn't make it out. And it's just really, really hard. A lot of people have had to face death, and I try not to ever say to people, I understand, because there's different circumstances in different ones.
Yes.
I don't know what it would be like to lose a child that wasn't serving the Lord. When my mom passed, we knew it was coming, and there was the pain of seeing it coming. With my son, I got a phone call because he wasn't at church that night.
Mm-hmm.
And when he wasn't at church, and then there was a report of somebody had drowned in the river.
Oh.
And I got a phone call, and nothing prepares you for, a hit like that. But two things have helped me through it. One is Adam himself, who he was. I would find out good things that he was doing or had done I didn't know about. He didn't tell me. But just so much good he was doing. And the other was, that very morning, somebody had asked in Bible class, it was in a university town, and somebody had challenged the class. They said, when your professor says, why would a good God let bad things happen to good people? What are you going to say? And they told me that Adam raised his hand, and he said, I like to tell my friends that my God takes care of his people, and that this world is like a broken down house, and he gets them out of it. And knowing that when he went to worship his Lord that morning, he had given that answer.
Yes.
And of course, now when he got stuck in the river, he was trying, of course, to save himself and struggling and trying to get out, and the homeless guys couldn't help him. But he had his faith in the Lord. That helped me. The other thing that helped me was this. Two other things. Acts chapter 12, it looks like Peter's going to be killed by Herod. Mm-hmm. And people were praying, and Peter's delivered. But James wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the thousands of disciples, Jesus asked 12 to be his apostles. And out of those 12, he had 3 that were especially close to him that he would take on certain occasions. Mm-hmm. And if the Lord didn't stop his friend James from dying, why do I have a right to insist that I couldn't face a loss? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure people prayed for James too.
Oh, yeah.
And we know about Peter, he was not spared eternally because Jesus had told him how he's going to die.
Yes.
And whenever that time came in his life and Peter got arrested for that time, I'm sure there were lots of people praying. But that didn't mean that we're always going to get what we want. If we did, there'd be a lot of 2,000-year-old Christians around.
So what would you say to parents who are struggling with their faith because of this loss? I mean, what you've just said could be helpful, restoring perspective, but what would you challenge them to think about?
So the Sunday before Adam died, I did a sermon actually on this topic. And I said, how many of us know that there are drunk drivers? Everybody knows that. How many of us know that drunk drivers sometimes cause accidents and people get injured or killed? Every person in the auditorium knows that.
Mm-hmm.
How many people know that cancer is a real thing? Everybody knows that.
Right.
I said, we know that's a fact, but then when it happens to us, suddenly we want to demand to know why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's of course you're going to feel emotionally, but the fact is there are drunk drivers, there is cancer, and if you swim in a flooded river where the hydraulics are completely different and you get caught in an undertow, there's laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not God's job to intervene every single time. Everybody, think of people that have passed away in our, we've always prayed for them.
Yes.
And we should.
Right.
We can put up a petition. But it's not God's job to make sure that Tabitha, who made all the quilts,
Right.
never died again. She did.
Right.
The one other thing I would say is this. The other thing that helps me is gratitude. And it's kind of based on, like in Philippians, how you look at things. If I start to feel sorry for Adam or sorry for myself,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to change anything at all. It's going to make me miserable and not change anything. And so instead, I switched to being grateful because I'm very, very grateful for my son, Adam.
I'm having a recollection of something you said, I believe it was at his memorial service. I've seen it on plaques in people's houses, some quote from yours about a son, about sons.
Yeah, Caleb Churchill wrote me a note, and he said, is there anything we can do? And I said, yeah. I said, you and that wife of yours have a baby boy and raise him to serve God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was more to it than that.
Right. Yeah.
And then somebody put it into a nice calligraphy thing.
Yeah, I've seen
and
that.
I'll hear from moms that says, I have that in my boy's room. And
well,
I'm glad for that.
I was very impressed as I was actually over in Africa when we learned about Adam going missing. And of course we were praying at that time. But how your family weathered that circumstance, bringing glory to God through it was very beautiful and encouraging to all of us who have children and want to see them serving the Lord, regardless of how long we get to have them.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So let's go back to talking about raising our children, training our children. How do you train children in the way that they should go to have their own faith, rather than like we talked about just before about it just being a traditional thing? How do you get them to make it their own?
So I'll share this. This may help. One thing, by making it about God, not about us.
Right.
Which was one of the things I wanted in that improvement game.
Yes.
It's not like mom and dad are always right. It's, no, sometimes dad's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes mom's wrong. And they knew that well enough. Pretending differently is not going to change that. God's right. And so there's that. Another thing was one of my kids was kind of naturally skeptic, as I am.
Mm-hmm.
So like my whole family knows I'm a skeptic. I don't mean I don't believe in God. I have a skeptical nature.
Yeah.
Something comes on, there's something interesting, somebody says it reported, and they'll look at me and mom will say, Dad doesn't believe it. And so one of the reasons I've dug deeply into a lot of apologetics and done a lot of research on a number of avenues of apologetics, done different things. And sometimes it's because I want the answer to that thing.
Sure.
One of my kids from a younger age would say, Dad, how do we know there's a God?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know there's a God?
Right.
And I would say, the biblical word, I mean, occasionally you'll see the word know, like Paul, who saw Jesus. Jesus spoke to him and said, I know there's a crown. I said, but the biblical word is faith, believe.
Right.
I said, believing is, faith is something, believing that you haven't seen.
Right.
And then I'd talk to him about how it's not just in religion that we do that.
Mm-hmm.
All over the place, we believe things that we can't see. For example, right now, neither of us can see our wives.
Right.
I know I haven't, and I'm absolutely 100% convinced you don't have a private detective following your wife right now.
That's correct.
Or a security camera watching her to see what she's doing when we're not watching.
Not at all.
And that's because we married worthy women, and the heart of the husband of a worthy woman,
Trusts in her.
yeah, trusts in her. Not because we see her all the time. You trust in your wife because you have plenty of reasons
Right.
to trust in her. I trust in my wife because I have plenty of and that's why we proposed to our wives, because of what we saw in them.
Right.
And so I would say there's things you won't see, but you have to have a reason for what you do believe. And so I was glad that he waited till he was older before he became a Christian, because I didn't want him with that mind to make a decision early and then later say, what was I thinking? So I was really pleased when he was older, when he made his decision.
Yeah, so there's a sense in which when a child shows some skepticism about what they've been taught all of their life, it at least demonstrates that they're thinking. But this will also scare parents. In other words, and sometimes there's not the right reaction to that. So
one of the worst things would have been to say, you just believe.
right.
That's not what Jesus was telling us to do. Peter talks about give a reason for your hope. Be able to give an answer and give a reason for the hope that's in you. Jesus said in John 5:31, if I just say, I'm paraphrasing, if I just say I'm he, you shouldn't believe it.
Right.
Look at the evidence.
Right.
John the Baptist, the miracles he's doing, and the prophecies. And so if we just act like, I said this, so you're supposed to do it. I believe this, you're supposed to believe it. Don't ask questions.
Yeah. And what that might
not helpful.
suggest is that the parents don't have reasons either. In other words, because otherwise, why wouldn't we just share those reasons with them?
Yeah. In fact, an interesting question I'll sometimes pose to people, why, now, today, so much of the world is either apathetic or agnostic, but let's go back a few years. Why was almost everybody in Italy Roman Catholic?
Yeah.
Why were so many people in India Hindu?
Mm-hmm.
It's because their parents were. Mm-hmm. And if the only reason we believe what we believe is because our parents believed it, how is that very different?
Yet at the same time, parents have an obligation to teach these things to their children. So
Yes.
There's a little bit of a tension there between, are we brainwashing or are we
Yes.
teaching?
And this gets back to like some of the reasons.
Yeah.
We should show them reasons. And I also talk very frankly with my kids about dangers. So my boys knew from an early age the dangers of pornography. And so at an early age, they'd be over at a friend's house and she'd say, this commercial came on, this lady came on not wearing much, and your boy did this, and they just teaching those and about evidences, sharing evidences with kids and stuff.
Right.
Instead of just, you believe this. Again, it's pointing them to God, and part of pointing to God is pointing to the evidences. And Jesus is pointing to evidences.
Right.
And so again, it goes beyond us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us about some of the differences between better and average parenting. In other words, the methods that people use in parenting that are good and that aren't so good.
All right, so I'm going to share here a story. Apologies to my middle daughter, because she goes around the country and she will have sometimes people say, "Oh, you're the car seat girl." But I think this story is valuable. So one mistake I think we can make as parents, and it's not probably the worst one, but I think it does make a real difference. The difference between situation control and training the child. So your child's misbehaving. You could control the situation and make it where they can't misbehave. Take that thing away from them. Just you control it, it's solved. Or if they're screaming, you control it. That's not child training. And I've found it very helpful to not just control the situation, but to train the child.
Sure.
So out of the 6 kids, some of them one time decided to just go for it and just refuse to obey. In fact, 3 of them did that. 3 of them never did. And this is going to be one of the times when this happened. And this was my middle daughter. So the deal was, she, at that age, and at that time in Pennsylvania, she only had to have a booster seat. She was still pretty small, but she only had to have a booster seat. It was our job when she got in the car. We had 3 kids at the time. She was to get in, climb into her booster seat, snap it shut, off we go. We get in the car. And I got to tell you, this little girl was the easiest of the 6. When she was a baby, I remember somebody just called her Smiley. She was always smiling. If I looked at her, I mean, I almost never needed to spank her. Bertina probably gave her more spankings. I almost never needed to. And if I did, that would have usually been enough. She was a really easy child till this day. We get in the car, and her older sister says, I'm backing up. She says, she didn't get in her car seat. And I said, get in your car seat. And she didn't. Now, this is very unlike her. She was maybe 3. So I pull over by a creek, and I remember my mom, she would make us go get a switch. We'd have to, I went and got a switch, and I got out of the car, and we had a talk. So the Bible says, the rod and reproof. Just the rod doesn't teach the lesson, just reproof doesn't back it up. So there'd be, the talk and then the spanking. And so then I have a talk with her. And that it's my job to teach her and train her, and she has to obey. And she disobeyed, and so now she's going to have to get a spanking. And I spanked her with that switch. And she cried, but it wasn't quite the cry that I would have expected. And I said, now get in the car seat. And she got up and she sat down beside the car seat. And I brought her back out. And we had the long talk again, firmer. And I spanked her harder. I said, now please, this time, sit down in the car seat. And usually when I'd have this talk, sometimes I'd start with, does Daddy love you? Yes. Is Daddy angry with you? No. Lots of times with some of the other kids too, it'd be like, I'll sidetrack and then come back to that. A common thing might be, oh no. What did Mommy say do? Mommy said do it. And what did you do? I didn't do it. And what do you got to get? Spanking. Does Daddy love you? Yes. Does Daddy mad at you? No. But we're getting firmer with the conversation. Spanking her harder. Said, now get in the car seat. This time she got in the car and she sat down beside the car seat. Took her out again. Conversation, spanking, car seat, beside the car seat. It was the 5th time before she finally sat down in the car seat.
Wow.
And it took a while. But she finally got in her car seat and buckled it. And later that day I asked her, I said, why did you do that? Did you think Daddy was going to give up? And she went, uh-huh. And what my little girl needed to find out that day was that Daddy wasn't going to give up. Now, I tell that story to say this. I could have saved myself a lot of time.
Yeah, where were you going? Were you late to wherever you were going?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I tell you what, one time, I said this happened 3 times. where one child, one time, just went for it. And with my son, when he was actually younger,
Which son is this?
this was that.
Okay.
It was Sunday morning. I called somebody to take my class. I said, I got to finish this. And somebody subbed for me. But then he did. But the thing is, I could have picked her up
Put her in the
and
car
put
seat.
her little stubborn body in the car seat and closed it.
Right.
And I would have controlled the situation.
Yes.
If I'd gone past a police officer, he would have seen my child in a car seat
Right.
per PA law.
Uh-huh.
But that wouldn't have trained her. I wanted her to make the decision to obey.
To submit.
And then after that, she never did it again. And out of the 6 kids, the 3 that did that one time, then once they got done with that, they didn't try that again.
So let me push back on that just a little bit. So you've got ideal children then.
No, I don't.
Well, that's what I think some people would say is that, and so, I tried that and that didn't work, or whatever. So what's your response to
Well,
something
like one
that?
of my kids got spanking after spanking after spanking after spanking after spanking after spanking. And I said he was a skirmisher, because he wouldn't do the just, I'm not going to obey. Then he'd obey, but he'd be back around for another round later. And I apologized to him recently because I said sometimes I didn't do it as patiently as I should have, or I was getting frustrated.
Sure.
And we talked about that before, but I think part of the reason with him was, but sometimes I did, because it kept happening, be less patient and not have the conversation as much beforehand and
Yes.
not prep the heart.
Right.
And then that's more likely to result in the kind of stomping off
Right.
that would then, of course, have him back in trouble.
Yeah.
And so the thing is being consistent. A whole lot, being kind, calm, and consistent makes for effective parenting. When we're not calm, it's hard to get the child to be in control if it doesn't seem like we're in control.
Right.
And you don't want to abuse a child. The purpose of discipline is not to abuse a child. The purpose of discipline, the motivation is love. Not that you're embarrassed, not that you're angry, not that you don't want to be late. The purpose, he who loves him disciplines him.
So
And so consistency is huge.
Speak to this for just a moment then. You just said it's the purpose isn't to abuse. We're not
Right.
to abuse children, but you've made a lot of references here to corporal punishment. And there are many in our culture today who would suggest that any kind of corporal punishment rises to the level of abuse. What would be your response
And
to that?
that's folly. Lots of times with a small child, all you need to do is this. Like April's first spanking was she discovers it's fun to just take the toilet paper and do this. And Bertina says, no. She's like, and then she gets, no. And it's like, it broke her little heart. But then she understood, oh, she meant that. And sometimes even just that is all it needs. Now, as they get older, when my mom would spank me as a 8-year-old, I wasn't getting this, but this is illustrated well one time. I was watching a program. It was some talk show. There was a male host, female host, and they're interviewing a guest, and there's a studio audience, and they're talking about this subject. And the child expert is explaining how you should never, of course, he's using language like, I would refer to spank or discipline. He's using words like hit and stuff like that, which sounds more like out of anger. But he's just saying you should never do that at all. No physical, enforcement like that. And he's the expert, and he's made his declaration. And the female host, who has like a 2-year-old and maybe a 4-year-old, said, well, now, if my 2-year-old starts to pick up a knife or something, I'll take the little hand and I'll say, no. And he smiles and goes, and it's important to know that that's wrong.
Really?
Yeah. And then a lady up in the back says, she's got a question. He says, yes. My problem is I'm always yelling and screaming at my kids. He laughed and told her, "Oh, don't worry about it. I yell and scream at my kids too."
Aha. So he's all right with yelling and screaming, but not with spankings.
Yes, I'm glad that I had a mom that loved me enough that when I needed spanking, I had spanking, and I would take that any day over having had a mom that was yelling and screaming at me.
Yeah.
She didn't yell at me. She didn't scream at me.
Yeah.
When I needed spanking, she'd say, "Okay, boys, go get a switch."
Yeah.
And I deserved it, and I learned a lesson from it. And I'm thankful that she loved me and taught me. She was very, very, very kind. I'm so glad I didn't get yelled and screamed at. Now, there are people that do terrible things to children, and there's people that are in jail and need to be in jail, whether it's spousal abuse or other things. But loving discipline of a child, Proverbs, biblical discipline, he who spares the rod hates the child, but he who loves him, disciplines him diligently. There's that consistent.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I've heard the word "no" come up several times in your talking about parenting. Elaborate on that word. Is that a key word for you?
Yeah. So what are some of the first words a child learns? Mama, maybe daddy, and no. Those are three of the early words.
Yeah.
There's a few other ones too, depending on if you've got a dog or a cat or whatever. But it's a word they can learn early.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've said over and over when I do this series, and I grant it's a little bit of hyperbole and probably not technically accurate, but it feels like it. When you teach your little guy, your little girl to respect the word no, half of your job is done. Now, not time-wise, there's still years to go.
Sure.
And you're going to face new challenges. But here's the thing. When that 1 or 2-year-old learns so that, like, they go to grandma's house or something, and here's some crystal or something, and baby starts to walk over and get it, and mom goes, no, honey, that's a no. And the child pulls her hand away and goes and plays with their toy.
Mm-hmm.
That child's way ahead of the game. That mom's already done a just great job in the father, because here's what that child has learned. They don't know the word respect and they don't know the word authority, but they've learned how to respect authority.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. They've also learned you don't always get to do what you want. The child who thinks they should be able to get to do everything they want is not going to be a happy child.
No.
If you let them do everything they want, you send them to school, they're not going to get to do everything they want there. At some point in their life, they're not going to get to do what they want. It's going to be a miserable child. So they've learned to respect authority. They've learned you don't always get what you want. And they've learned that behavior is more important than desire. I wanted to pick that up. Oh, but I'm not supposed to. Mom said no. And so what I wanted to do doesn't matter. And they've learned self-control. Now let's fast forward to teenage years. Here's 2 children. They both go to separate parties. Somebody shows up at that party with alcohol, drugs, or a sexual overture or something. One child has not learned to respect authority. Has not learned you don't always get what you want. Has not learned that behavior is more important than desire, and has not learned self-control. They're going to make some really bad decisions.
Yeah.
The child who's learned to respect authority has learned you're not supposed to get everything you want. Your behavior is more important than desire, and you self-control. Very, very different. Different age range, but those principles are going to be throughout. If you're serving as an elder in a church, you've seen this among people. There's people that learn those lessons,
right,
and the ones that didn't still need to learn it. And it's just better for us to, as parents, teach that early on.
Yeah. So wouldn't, obviously no is a negative word. And so people are thinking, isn't that kind of a negative approach to discipline, to training children?
Training children is by no means just a negative thing. Correcting children is a little bit inherently no, because it's correction.
Right.
We don't correct our children for saying thank you. We don't correct them for saying please. We don't correct them for, their accomplishments. There should be so much celebration. There should be so much play. There should be so much joy. And even some correction can even be games and stuff. This is what we would do when one would get whiny, say, at the table. We didn't do, you whined, you're getting a spank. I think spanking is for disobedience, not an accident or forgetting something.
Right.
And, we can all get whiny sometimes. But say one of our little guys or little girls is getting whiny at the table, and you turn into a game and say, oh, what if, let's just for a few minutes, let's just be the whiny family and see what that would be like. What if we all just whine? I say, Bertina, how was your day? And she starts in, oh, this happened, and she's moaning and making faces and whining. And then the older siblings are, and by now the 3 or 4-year-old is laughing because it looks so silly.
Exactly.
Now they're in a totally different mood, and you didn't spank them for that. You did something fun that turned things around and brought them out of it. But there should just be a whole lot of play and enjoyment and just positive things. And then when they're doing something they're not supposed to, let them know no. And if they respond well, great. They understand that. If they disobey, if they look at you and do it anyway, well, now it's time for discipline.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of literally asking for it.
Yeah, so if you put those no's in the context of a greater, positive, loving, God-fearing environment, then it's going to produce good children.
Yes.
But if you take it outside of that context and it's just reactionary, then you're going to have a lot more problems.
Yeah.
So what are some of your greatest concerns for families today in the current culture? You mentioned pornography.
Yeah, pornography is huge. So years ago, I started working with teenagers during the summer. A lot of us in those camps have worked with these teenage boys for years and years and years. Sometimes, 140, 150 boys, sometimes a camp maybe. And so many of them they've got a lot good going on, but they're addicted to pornography. I had one young man told me from a good family. I've been in his family's home, had dinner with him, good family. And he said the only days in the entire last year that I didn't use pornography and act out on it were the 6 days at camp.
Oh, wow.
Where he had to turn in his phone.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the difference between addiction and exposure, and I think you just gave me a good example of that.
Yeah, every single day. I've had guys talking about they actually injured themselves. Mm. You know what's interesting? People, how do they often speak out about the Bible? They say it's not relevant because it's so old. It's a 2,000-year-old book. Yeah. Here we are. We're so smart today, and we've got all this technology. And you know what we use a whole lot of the technology for? To break the 10 Commandments. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a whole lot of the downloads and searches and stuff are just in violation of just basic moral things. There's always been thieves, but now you can do identity theft over the computer. Exactly. There's always been adulterers. Now you can go to a site to find other people that want to commit adultery. Right. It's just, and we're consumed by it. And it's not just the pornography. It's when I was talking with, I've got some Filipino friends up in Pennsylvania, and I was talking just 2 days ago with one of the guys, and he was asking me where I preached, and I was mentioning, because he had a little 8-month-old baby, I was mentioning, that he can find the parenting stuff online if he's interested, but he's already just doing a good job. He said, we don't give her any screen time. Her mom's real strict about it. And it's easy. You can give a tablet to a child. And I'm not saying you can never do this, but you can give a tablet to a child. I watch kids that they don't have a married mom and dad at home, but they'll behave themselves because they just hand them electronic and they're just consumed by it. And they'll just sit there and watch it forever. A little bit of that, maybe, but that can also just turn into just lazy parenting. Yeah. when that child should be either held or taught something or played with or go on an adventure or go outside or something else. And then later you look and, you'll see teenagers and they're just all, David, the heavens declare the handiwork of God. There's a lot of teenagers now, they don't know what's in the sky.
Right.
Because their
Always
face is
looking down.
always down here.
Yeah.
And I think we need to take that serious.
So how do we train our children or protect our kids from, well, let's just say specifically with pornography?
Warn
Warn them.
them. I remember one family saying, well, I didn't think it would have been a problem yet. Their kids are 11 or 12 or something.
Yeah, right.
Years ago, 20 years ago, or 15, about 20 years ago, the average age of exposure was 11. Average. So if you're not talking to them about it till they're 12, when they get to be 14, I'll talk to them about pornography. Their friends have it. And so talk to your children. Be upfront about it. Let them know the dangers of it. So that it's an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure.
So if we're going to give them a device, you certainly got to warn them about, how to use that, the self-control you talked about earlier.
And don't give them to the device until they're mature enough.
Exactly.
You don't hand a rifle to a child that's not old enough to respect what it is.
Right.
You don't hand the keys to the car to a child that's not mature enough to understand the responsibility. And one 13-year-old boy told me one time, he said, my dad gave me my smartphone for my birthday, and I wish he never would have done it.
So let's look at this from a different angle, the same pornography problem. What does this do to marriages?
I remember one time, a woman called me. She says, I forget if she said, come pick him up or I'm dropping him off.
Talking about her husband.
Yeah. And now he wasn't a computer guy, but she found his stash of pornography. And she said, all these years, I thought he was in love with me and satisfied with me. It's just brutal. It's just brutal. And so Proverbs 5, that's just a powerful chapter. Stay away from her door. It's good for young men. It's good for old men. Stay away from her door. Keep your way far from her. Proverbs 5 and 7. And that's rejoice in the wife of your youth. Be intoxicated in her love. And it doesn't say rejoice in your wife while she's a youth.
Exactly.
Rejoice in the wife of your youth. And if our kids understand the dangers first, and I mean, my kids know some of the horror stories, and if we're squeamish to talk about it, it's not that the world's not going to talk to them about it, or their friends aren't. And so we need to get over being squeamish, and we need to talk to our kids and prepare them.
Right, and that would go a long way then to keeping them from getting addicted at age 12 or 13 and taking that with them into their marriages. And
because I one time heard some teenagers talking to some other teenagers and said, we'll probably all have this problem until we get married.
Thinking that it was going to fix the problem.
And you've dealt with enough adult people to know that that's not where. One fellow that ended up in a psych ward and ended up dying fairly early told a young man just before he died, said, don't waste your life on pornography like I did. He started at a young age, got married, and of course, that was not the end of it.
So in talking about these young men who are exposed early and develop this habit, what kind of help can we offer them?
Matthew chapter 5.
Matthew 5.
If your eye offends you, pluck it out. If your hand offends you,
Cut it off.
Cut it off. So let me tell you, occasion where I heard this one young man saying, we'll probably all have this problem till we get married. So this was some teenage boys having a conversation, and they asked me to be present. And I'm listening to, and boy after boy is telling his horror story. And it almost all began the same. I was at home alone. Mm-hmm. I was in my room watching TV. Why is the TV in the son's room? And it's got cable because he said a commercial for porn came on. Mm-hmm. Why did it's over and over. I was at home alone. I was in my room over and over and over. And then he tells his horror story. And then one boy said something like, we all have this problem. So I got up and I said, no, you don't all have this problem. A lot of you do, but some of you don't. And you're the one, you have a great gift in that you don't. But of the other ones, the thing to do, this idea that, we'll keep it until we get married. And I was correcting that. And then one of the boys later, another boy got up and he said something extremely, extremely valuable. He said, I've been clean from this stuff for a year.
Okay.
He gave up his computer.
That just seems completely unreasonable to our present digital culture.
Yes.
Technological.
Yes. And, having a right eye or a right foot seems like something we would like to have too, but Jesus is making a point. You get rid of whatever you need to get rid of. So, like one time I'm having to counsel this young couple, and he's flirting with this girl at work, and the wife has found the notes, and it's pretty bad. Well, of course, he had to quit that job. Mm-hmm. He's created an infatuation with this girl that's dressing provocatively and interacting with him. He needed to quit that job.
Cut it off.
It's like, I'll keep going back and be interacting. No. Get away from her. You need to get away from that. Joseph doesn't say to Potiphar's wife, let's hold hands and cuddle for a few minutes and talk about it. No. He got out of there.
Right.
So this business, I can't help myself. Yes, you can. You can get rid of that. You can stop paying your bill. If you're old enough, you're paying your own bill. You quit paying the internet bill. Guess what?
They'll cut you off.
They'll cut you off. Well, but I need it for work. Then maybe you'd need a different job. Or maybe I'm a Luddite. So I use a flip phone still. Mm-hmm. Other people could too. Now I use a computer, but not for pornography, but I use a computer for other things. But the thing is, people that have a problem, they could skip the computer and just have a flip phone. You can still get an email. But no, you don't. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can control yourself and have that access, okay. But the rich young ruler needed to get rid of his money because it was in control of him.
So ultimately, we're getting back to issues of self-control.
Yes.
As has been observed, if you cut off a hand or pluck out an eye, you still got another one. And if in other words, you're still ultimately getting back to self-control. But some of these things we can literally cut off.
Yeah.
And might need to do that.
And that's what was so good to see when one of the young men pointed out, I had this problem. He probably used a computer in the family room around the family or something, but he quit. He gave up private computer access because he wanted to do what was right and serve God.
So let's talk about another subject. Let's talk a little bit about divorce, and it's very prevalent in our culture, has been for decades. So what's that impact?
So I think partly it's when we lower our standards get lower. Like there's always been divorce, but there was a time in this country where divorce was not celebrated or frowned. Like now there's churches that'll do a liturgy for divorce. Mm-hmm. Come in for your wedding, we'll do a liturgy. Come in for your divorce, we'll do a liturgy. Mm-hmm. And if you grow up in a family where you look at marriage as a temporary construct like that car,
Right.
then you just think that's the norm. We need to get back to realizing what Jesus said, that, and like we say in our vows, till death do you part, understanding this is a lifelong commitment and respecting that. Another part is working on our marriages. One time I was doing a series on the home, and a fella came and he heard some lessons on marriage, or a lesson on marriage. And he said, I've been going to church for years, and I've never heard a lesson on marriage. I always hear lessons on divorce.
Interesting. Let's talk positively about marriage.
Yeah. It's like maybe the more we focus on doing things right, the less we have to clean up the mess when it all goes wrong.
Yeah. Another current topic in our culture that is impacting families is the whole LGBTQ, type of mentality or worldview or thinking. There's a lot of social pressure being applied to accept these relationships that, are obviously at odds with our reading of Scripture. And so how can we help these people who are being tempted in these ways by these social pressures to resist, to press on, to do what's right?
And how to treat people. Say if I've got a neighbor over here and he's an alcoholic.
Right.
He's a drunkard.
Yeah.
Drunkard is not going to, he's an active alcoholic. He's a drunkard. He's not going to inherit the kingdom of God. Doesn't mean that I should mistreat him. Doesn't mean that I should be mean to him. He's my neighbor. Right. I should treat him. 1 Corinthians 5. When Paul said, don't tolerate a brother being that, but we're not talking about the world. You'd have to go out of the world.
Right.
Over here, this guy, he's a philanderer. He's not married, but he cheats with other people's wives and stuff. I can be his neighbor. I can help him if he needs help with something, but that doesn't mean I have to celebrate his adultery or his drunkenness.
Excellent.
Sin is sin, whether it's this sin or that sin. Jesus died for the thief. Jesus died for the person in a sexual perversion, for the homosexual, or for the person that's denying their reality and lying and saying that they're a boy when they're a girl. Jesus died for all of them. Mm-hmm. And if they're my neighbors, I shouldn't mistreat any of them.
Right.
But that also doesn't mean that I have to approve of thievery.
Correct.
That I have to celebrate adultery or drunkenness or this.
So let's talk about another angle, and that's the subject of patriarchy. You've heard the term, I'm sure. Anybody who's grown up in a biblical household knows about the patriarchs and that sort of thing. But patriarchy has become a bad word, a pejorative term in our state. As a father and a grandfather, what do you think of that?
So, first off, I'll tie it into the last, and then I'll go there.
Sure.
There's somebody, a famous cross-dresser, had a TV show. I think the name might be RuPaul or something.
Yeah.
He was in the news a few years ago. He said that the whole trans movement is, I'll skip his language, but it's a big insult against the patriarchy. That's the purpose of it.
Interesting.
So that's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So don't listen to your dad. Don't listen to your dad. Don't listen to your dad. And then listen to us. Listen to the social influencers and stuff. Men need to be men. Women need to be women. Kids need to be kids, and they need to grow up to be adults. And part of the role of men in having a family is to protect and care for their families and lead them. That's a God-given role.
Right.
And we need to step up to that, whether anybody likes it or not. We need to raise families that care about people, that care about the lost, and realize that we have all sinned. This is not the only sin. It's a sin that our society celebrates and promotes, but it's not the only sin. We've all sinned. We need to raise families that recognize that and want to turn to God and help other people turn to God, whether it's from this sin or the sins that we ourselves have committed.
But you would say that patriarchy isn't the problem.
No.
then. So you would say that the idea of a man being the head of his household,
Absolutely biblical.
very biblical
Yeah,
concept.
Ephesians 5,
But of course, there's been abuse of that.
yes.
And that oftentimes causes people to react to that
Yes.
abuse.
And partly there's real abuse, and then partly there's the guilt by association thing. So let's talk about toxic masculinity.
Yeah, right.
All right. So there is such thing. So two guys in the Old Testament, help me with the names here. In the book of Genesis, was it Lamech, who
Seventh generation.
is the first guy to have the
Two wives.
multiple wives?
Yeah, Lamech.
And what does he say very boastfully to his wives? I killed a youth for smiting me. And if Cain is avenged, sometimes I'm avenged.
Yeah,
Yeah, even more.
even more so.
Now compare him to the great mighty man Nimrod.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the quote right now, but it was said of him, he was a mighty man.
Yeah.
Let's compare these two guys. One's masculine, one's toxic masculine. So they both kill. One, he's a hunter. He's supplying. And he's effective at it. He's a good supplier, and he's good at what he does, and people respect that. And instead of him boasting about himself, it was said of him. Other people are praising him. You look at Lamech, and this miserable sack of skin is boasting to his wives about how powerful he is, and that he killed a youth for slightly insulting him.
Mm-hmm.
He might think he's being a man. That's not what being a man is about. That's just being arrogant, selfish, boastful. And men can be that way sometimes, and that's exactly what men shouldn't be. The difference between the two is really striking. The problem is not masculinity. The problem is the selfish, boastful, prideful, unloving, unkind, just meanness and stuff.
When we're talking about patriarchy, we're talking about father rule. And
Yeah.
so I think part of the problem, some of the pushback that we're getting is that why should a male, just because he is a father, have the rule?
And I would say, number one, because God says so.
Right.
And there are things that my wife is better at, and there are things that I'm better at. And my kids needed her, and they needed me. And my kids in their own families, they need their my grandchildren need their fathers, and they need their mothers. Now, I do want to say this: you do end up in situations where you have, sometimes through nobody's fault, a single parent home.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's been an accident, a death, a disease, or maybe somebody abandoned the family. A good friend of ours, Paul Earnhardt, was raised by his mom, not his mother, not his father.
Along with several brothers.
Yeah, and kudos to her for the job she did.
Absolutely.
And I would liken it to this. I had a friend in college. He had one leg, lost it in a motorcycle accident. One leg ended right here. I was amazed at what he could do. He was a good wrestler. He could go bowling. He could drive my car, which was a 4 on the floor with a manual shift. He's got one foot. You got your clutch, brake, and accelerator. He could do that. I was amazed at what he could do. Later, I see him on TV. He's in the handicap Olympics. I'm amazed at but he would never tell anybody you should cut off your leg.
Right.
To be like this. What he did, he made the best of the situation that he was in. And kudos to moms that do that, or dads that do that. But you don't aim for that. And so children need, we generally need a right leg and a left leg. If you don't have it, kudos for proceeding, because you're excelling at a disadvantage, not an advantage.
Right.
The advantage is having a father there and having a mother there, and they don't need to be competing to be doing the same job. Dad needs to be dad, mom needs to be mom.
Maybe last question, what counsel would you give to young people regarding marriage and family, just in general?
Yeah. So, young men, realize you're already working on your family, because your family is going to be made up of a man and a woman that become one and hopefully be blessed with children. The man of that family is already under construction.
Mm-hmm.
Build him well. Build the man that a worthy woman wants to attach herself to. Build yourself into the man that she's going to trust to lead her and provide for her and the children. Don't be doing all these bad mistakes that we're talking about and then expect that some worthy woman who's kept herself pure and everything else is going to pick you.
Mm-hmm.
You be the worthy man. And young ladies, do the same. Be building the woman that good man puts his heart and trust into. And find somebody that loves God more than you.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. Well, I've enjoyed the conversation.
Good to be with you, Andy.
Well, that's the interview. If you found that helpful, leave us a comment and tell us why. If you know somebody else who would benefit from this video, click that share button down below the video and send it to them. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Grace and peace.